Thank you very much, Sudha. So good evening, everyone. My name is Omar Passons. I am a deputy city manager with the city of San Jose. My area of focus is homelessness. I'm joined by James Stagey, who is a member of the Public Works team that focuses on helping make sure that we get quality production. Sudha and myself are with the city manager's office, and we've got some colleagues from the housing department on as well. What I'd like to do first before we begin, and again, we're only talking about a short presentation, but before we get to that, I would like to ask Mayor Mahan if you'd like to say a few words before we turn to Councilmember Jimenez.
Great, thanks, Omar. Good evening, everyone. Good to be here with you. And I wanted to be sure to be here for the beginning of the meeting, and I'll have Alejandro, my team, will be here for the entirety. Want to share a few thoughts on where we are and why and kind of what comes next, and then turn it over to Councilmember Jimenez, who I know has been actively engaged. So to back up, just some context, the city council has directed city staff multiple times in recent years to scale up our interim housing sites and safe parking. These are lower barrier places for currently homeless individuals to go, because while it would be nice, it would be great if we could build affordable housing for everybody at $1 million a door in 5 years to build, we know we need some more immediate solutions for getting people out of unmanaged encampments and getting RVs out of our neighborhoods, away from small businesses, away from schools, and so forth. So we've been pursuing kind of lower barrier, more cost-effective, more immediate solutions to encampments and lived-in vehicles on city streets. The good news is that these interim housing sites, of which we have 6 up and running across the city, have been quite effective. They're nearly 100% utilized. They are bringing people out of encampments in our city. We have control over who we place there. So they are directly taking people out of encampments and getting them into a managed environment with on-site services and security. And as we've looked at the data, I won't go on too long, but I will just tell you, we've had over 70% of the over 1,000 people who have gone from encampment or lived in vehicle into an interim housing site. Over 70% remain housed, and over 50% have resolved to a point with the services that they've been able to graduate to permanent housing. And the results when they get to permanent housing have been that the vast majority, 90+%, remain housed. So that's great. We've also done the data analysis. Staff did a presentation recently. We looked for each of these sites at the data 12 months after and 12 months before the site was opened. And we found that calls for service for crime and blight, so trash and graffiti and illegal dumping is the blight piece, and then crime, have actually gone down the 12 months after a site opens than before. That's not to say nothing bad ever happens in the neighborhood. I want to be clear, but when we look at the data, we actually see calls reduced, and it kind of makes sense. We're getting people out of unmanaged encampments, unmanaged RVs, and into a site where there's security and services. So big picture, building out our supply of interim housing, these little interim housing or quick build communities, has on the whole been effective and really been the only strategy we've had to ending street homelessness that's been scalable, because so many of our other solutions are very slow and very expensive. So I'm bullish on this. The council has been. We've directed staff to scale these up. We set a goal over a year ago of creating 1,000 of these units. We've added additional goals around scaling up managed safe places for people to go. I believe safe parking, similarly, we've seen in other cities similar results, very effective at transitioning people off the streets. That being said, we are looking what staff has brought forward here is looking at a backup site in District 2, which I know is the purpose of this meeting. The reason for that is that council last November approved a couple of VTA sites. And part of what sparked that work was dialogue I had with all of you, I know Councilmember Jimenez has had with all of you around wanting to spread these out. Let's get these in other districts. The goal is to have these in every district and spread them out. And so we approved 2 sites that were an attempt to move away from your neighborhood, which has already taken on many of the solution here. You've done a couple of sites and have a safe parking site coming. District 10 needs to take on a site, so we looked over at Caudle rather than Great Oaks at the community's request. And then we found a large site up in North San Jose at Cerrone, VTA owned land. And the goal last November was to hit the ground running, start planning those sites, and not have to take another look at Great Oaks or Bernal or any of the other sites where you have quite a bit of land around freeways and freeway interchanges in South San Jose. And it's been very slow with VTA. Now, I think Councilor Jimenez has an update. We have been advocating. We have basically, as far as I understand it, staff's been reaching out on about a weekly basis, trying to get progress on these VTA-owned sites. We had conceptual agreement, council approved them. We went through a process, and then frankly, VTA moved very slow. And we've had a hard time getting site access and beginning to prepare. Part of what creates the urgency here is the crisis on the streets. It's not sustainable for us to continue to have 5,000 people living on our streets. Part of what creates the urgency as well is that we have agreed to take on 2,000 of these interim units for free. We're getting them for free from the state. So obviously it's taxpayer dollars, but it's not just San Jose taxpayers. The governor is putting out over 1,000 of these units as a faster, more cost-effective solution than just building brand new apartments. And we got an allocation. We were one of 5 jurisdictions, I believe, that got these because we've been willing to be innovative and to do the more cost-effective thing. So we've got this opportunity. We've got to create basic shelter and treatment centers and places for people to go and safe parking sites. And our preference is to put them up at Cerrone. But we have had so many delays and made so little progress with our partners at VTA and opening up that site that staff, to meet the direction from council, is looking at alternatives. And so Bernal is on the list. So that's what brings us to this meeting. I just wanted you to have the context on, we're committed to scaling up interim housing. We've got free units coming from the state to help us do that, which a lot of other cities are not getting. They're having to pay for them themselves out of their own local dollars. And we want to do these at Cerrone. And with your help, I think we can get VTA on board to let us use a big site up in North San Jose. We've got a site we're looking at in District 9. We've got other sites we're looking at. So the goal is certainly to spread these out as much as we can. We recently opened a site near downtown in the police station parking lot just north of our downtown. So we are absolutely working hard to spread these out, but we do need to keep scaling them. And when staff is told you got to go hit a target and we're going to hold them accountable, and I'm all about accountability. I think that our pay should be tied to results. They've got to have backup plans. And right now, Bernal is the best backup plan to Cerrone because of its state-owned land, it's large, and it could take on the 200 units. So I probably already said half of what Omar was going to say. I'll wrap it there. That's where we are. From my perspective, we could use your help to get some of these other sites in other parts of the city unstuck because the land is owned by other jurisdictions and we don't have control. We need our other elected bodies to work with us so that we can spread these out. So I really appreciate how engaged you've been. I really appreciate that District 2 and that part that is now District 10 down there has taken on part of this solution to homelessness. You all have been good neighbors and really collaborative, and I appreciate that. And let's work together and see if we can not have to use the backup plan, because I know that's everybody's preference here. Okay, Omar, I'll pass it to you or Councilmember Jimenez, but thank you for the opportunity to say a few words to the group here. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And for everybody that's joined since we got started, my name is Omar Passons. I'm with the City of San Jose. We are going to have a short presentation and then spend most of the time with your questions and answers. So unlike maybe sometimes you get a presentation and you're there listening to, somebody like me talk for a whole hour, that's not going to happen. I'm going to do a short presentation after Councilmember Jimenez speaks. And then once you have that information, we're going to go to Isa and then Brad and then take questions from others as they come in. So just wanted everybody to level set. Thank you very much. Councilmember Jimenez.
Yeah, thank you for all that information, Mayor, and welcome all the residents of District 2. And I certainly see some former residents of District 2. I know Isa is now in District 10, but used to be one of my constituents. Glad everyone's here. I did expect this to be a high turnout meeting. I see about 89 folks on. Obviously, this is a topic of interest. There's a few things I wanted to share. The first one is just simply that I agree with the sense of urgency that the mayor has stated and has mentioned. I totally agree with that. I was amongst the council members that voted to prioritize these concepts, right, to move forward, and certainly understand the importance of getting the folks off the street. I think where we may differ a little, and I've expressed this to him, it's not new to him, but where we've differed a little bit just has been this idea of concentration, right? And I think many of you can sympathize and understand why I would say that. In fact, today my office put out a statement touching on that very topic of over concentration, and really pointing us to and hopefully aiming the energy that's built up around this topic to be used in a productive manner to try to get some of our partners to move, such as VTA. I too am supportive of the Cerrone site, the VTA site, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that in just a second. In addition to the District 9 site, which the Cherry Avenue site, both of which council members in those respective districts are supportive of. And so this is exactly, in my mind, what we asked and what I've asked time and again in a very public way, in private spaces, for other council members to step up. And really, this is the opportunity to do that. And so we certainly are going to need your help to try to get us moving in the right direction. The other thing I wanted to let you know is that, so I encourage you to read the statement if you haven't already. Similar to the mayor, I'm not going to be able to stay on too long, but Helen Chapman from my team is going to be on. And I'm sure, this is being recorded, so we obviously are talking to Omar quite frequently. Earlier today, I had a meeting with the essentially the director of real estate for BTA, Ron Golem, about the challenges on their end as it relates to opening the doors for us to actually move to the Cerrone site. He cited a few things. One is general anxiety by VTA employees around security, which, as you can imagine, after the mass shooting that occurred, there's just a heightened sense of security for the employees there. I think very generally those are legitimate, but specifically to this site, I'm not sure that naturally plays out in the way that I think it should. And so we're going to push back on that. The other is mention of the VTA bargaining units, essentially all the employees that have asked what VTA is doing about housing some of their employees that after a long shift, they actually have to drive all the way back to the Central Valley and other such places. We discussed that. I think we're starting to get to the root cause of some of the challenges. I actually have a phone call scheduled tomorrow morning with the head of the ATU, which is the main unit at VTA, to discuss some of these issues and see how we can sort of move this conversation forward in a much more meaningful way. We can break through some of these challenges or perceived challenges that may exist. As an example, this is done. I don't want you to think this is actually going to happen. We don't know. It needs to be worked out. But something I brought up to Omar and some of the city staff is, as an example, if housing for VTA employees is one of those considerations or one of those concerns, what if we set aside some of those units for VTA employees? They can go an Airbnb in sorts, right? Where they can go sleep if they indeed need that type of space, so that way they're not driving home late at night. So I think we need to think creatively, and I have a goal, as I'm sure the mayor does and Omar does, as in trying to break down whatever barriers exist to get yes from VTA. Now, naturally, you may say, well, Councilmember Jimenez, you're on the VTA board. So is the mayor. So is a host of other elected officials from the city of San Jose. I can assure you that I expect to bring this forward in a much more meaningful way. As an example, I think that this topic is of broad public interest, and it really should be discussed at the board level. And so I'm actively, and I'm going to connect with the mayor about this because we haven't talked about this, but actively strategize on how we can get the VTA board to act in a much more meaningful way to move this a little quicker. And so as an example, June 1st, and I would encourage you to join the VTA meeting on June 1st, and I'm not going to be there because I have a graduation to go to, But the VTA meeting on June 1st is going to be held. There's going to be a space for public comment, and I encourage you to call into that VTA meeting. We can certainly provide you the information necessary to do that. But I just want to express to you that I hope that you find the time to make some comments. If I had to give you a piece of advice, the comments for all the community members on the call should be constructive, should be positive, should be around sort of, South San Jose, certain parts of the city, in my mind and your mind, have stepped up, have worked through this. There's other council members that are willing to step up, and we need VTA to step up now. And so even if it takes us, maybe the mayor and I bringing forward a referral to have the whole VTA board discuss this topic, because I think there would be support for that potentially. And so just wanted to let you know some of the things that are happening in the background, provide some context. So that way, when you're thinking about this, you know that there's people working in other spaces actively trying to move ahead, I think, in the direction we all want to move. And so I'll stop talking. Thank you for being here. Appreciate your participation or engagement as always. And be kind to the city staff. I think they're doing what we as elected asked them to do. And just know that they have the best interest of the city in mind. And that's essentially what they're doing. So big kudos to all the staff that's moving this forward. So I'll shut up. Thank you, Omar. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Jimenez. And for those, several people joined during the remarks from Councilmember Jimenez and from Mayor Matt Mahan. Just, I think probably the most important point to reiterate for this group is we're here to talk about backup sites or the alternatives in case our preferred city sites for some reason do not work out, because we're not getting some of the direction and haste and urgency that we really want around a site in District 4, which is not in District 2, and a site in District 9, which is not in District 2. What I'm going to do now, just so everyone has a common sense, a common frame, we've got about a 10-minute presentation, and then the rest of the time will be spent doing questions and answers. I already had a couple hands. I will do my best to make notes when I see hands go up so that I get people in order. Your patience is appreciated. This is not going to be a long presentation, because we know that as members of the community, you want information, but also some of you actually would like to make sure that your voices are heard here and in other spaces. The two things I would ask when we get to the Q&A portion is, please remember, if not, I mean, this is my job, James' job, Sudha's job, Marcus's job. So we can stay as long as we want to. We also want to make sure that your neighbors, your friends, your colleagues who want to say something or who want to ask a question get a chance to. And that becomes hard if the questions turn into lengthy statements as opposed to questions. We really want people to have a chance. Michael, I saw your hand. I'm writing you down as well, just FYI. So you're third on the list when we get there. I'm going to go ahead and share the screen and get us moving. And then, as I said, we'll stop in about 10 minutes and switch to questions and answers. So just a second. Okay. If I did this right, Sudha, can you shake your hand if you're seeing the screen? Oh, great, thank you. Don, I saw your hand as well, so I jotted you down as fourth on the list. I'm going to do my best to sort of multitask between these things, but again, your patience is really appreciated. All right, so let's get started. As I mentioned, my name is Omar Passant. I'm a deputy city manager with the city of San Jose. My focus is on preventing and ending homelessness and managing the impacts of this crisis on our community, our unhoused community, on neighbors who live in homes, on businesses, on the environment, et cetera. So everybody in San Jose. We will spend most of our time together listening to you. I just want to do some information as a level set to start off, so we all have the same set of same common understanding. And as I mentioned before, the purpose tonight, unlike some of the other meetings where we're actually proposing to go forward on June 6th with a specific site to use, the purpose tonight is to talk about sites that would go forward as backup or alternatives only in the event that the two sites that are staff's preferred locations, the VTA Cerrone site and the Cherry Avenue site, are unable to go forward. So I wanted to share that point. We're going to, if I can get the thing to work. There we go. So as I mentioned, we're going to cover just a little bit of background. We know the importance of preventing people from ever losing their home. It makes a really big difference. And we also know and believe in the basic fact that permanent affordable homes or apartments end people's homelessness. Today's presentation focuses on another urgent need in the city of San Jose: temporary places where people can get in and receive support while they're getting help to get to a permanent option. That's what emergency interim housing efforts are designed to do. As I mentioned, this presentation will be short. We'll cover some background. I'll explain that state initiative. You heard Mayor Mahan mention units. Just a quick clarification: it's City of San Jose is going to get 200 units. The state is paying for the design, the purchasing process, and the construction of those units. So we can talk through that a little bit. We'll share our preferred options, which I mentioned. We'll explain the Bernal backup sites, and then we'll switch to Q&A. So that's the general run of show. This slide that I put up, and for those that are just joining, my name is Omar Passons. I'm with the City of San Jose. This entire presentation is being recorded. It's also in both Vietnamese and Spanish. The presentation slide deck and the video recording will be uploaded to the same website that has the other community recordings and slide decks from prior sessions earlier in the last month or so. So you will be able to have this, share it, let other folks see it. The map that you're looking at now, there's a thing called the housing inventory count. It's a federal requirement that describes that each locality is responsible for sharing where all of their emergency, whether that's overnight or ongoing emergency shelter, safe havens, transitional housing, interim housing, where all those units are. These orange circles on this map demonstrate something that I think is pretty important to just be aware of. This is what the picture looks like for all of the city of San Jose, based on that federal report for emergency and transitional style housing. You'll notice that the concentration right now is in the districts 3, 6, and 7 center of San Jose. What I think many of you are experiencing and have shared in email and prior meetings is that you're seeing over the last couple of years an increase in South San Jose, districts 10 and districts 2, where you're starting to see some of the newer types, individual units with bathrooms come on board. We share this map because as Councilmember Jimenez mentioned, the mayor and council have said a couple times over the last few years, we want to make sure there are opportunities to help and for communities to support in all city council districts. And so when we meet with council offices, we are constantly talking about other parts of the city. And as noted on the June 6th council, we will be asking to proceed with a site in District 9. And ideally, we've already got approval to proceed in District 4 where the VTA Cerrone site is, but we just need to further that, move that along and move that one forward as well. Really quickly, this is last year, every year, folks are probably familiar, there's a point in time account, which is an overnight couple of days assessment of all the people who are experiencing homelessness in the region. These are the numbers for last year for the city of San Jose, right? 6,600, over 6,000 people experiencing homelessness, either in a shelter or otherwise, nearly 5,000 people living outside on the street or in a place not fit for human habitation. Part of the reason why we need this scaled approach in the immediate term while we're building more permanent homes is because there's so many people that are unfortunately experiencing what are unsafe conditions, uninhabitable conditions for people to live in. And that's not good for them. It's not good for having a sort of a healthy neighborhood for anyone. One of the questions we get asked a lot, for those that are just joining, this is just a short, about a 10-minute presentation. We're about halfway through, actually. I'm just providing some basic context before we go to your questions and answers. I often get asked, well, do we have a plan? Is there a strategy here? And the reality is the city of San Jose, together with partners like Destination Home, a backbone community agency, the Santa Clara County Housing Authority, and the Santa Clara County government have all locked arms together with people who have lived experience of homelessness and the business community and the labor community and on, and all said, we are coming together to create a regional plan. It's the community plan to end homelessness, and it has these 3 core strategies. Addressing root causes. People always ask, well, are we doing anything to prevent? Why are we always focused on the crisis? And we are doing things to prevent. There's quite a bit there. Most of our time today, this one is in that 3rd bucket, that 3rd strategy about improving quality of life for unsheltered individuals and creating healthy neighborhoods for everyone. That's what that community plan drives to. And these solutions, Joe, I see your hand as well. I'll put you after Dawn. These solutions are part of that strategy. A couple nuggets that often people don't get to hear, and so they don't know about. This data was released by our regional, one of those regional partners from the supportive housing system, and it shows that over the course of this community plan to end homelessness, over 9,600 people have gotten into a home. And even though that's a county-wide statistic, 84% of those people have an affiliation with the city of San Jose. So we are getting support from Santa Clara County, from your mayor and council and your own resources, from a wide range of sources, and it's helping house people in significant numbers. The problem, and probably what many of you experience and wonder, is with all those people getting housed, why does it feel like things are getting worse? Or why can't I sense that? This slide I'm showing right now presents a really important picture. What you can see is sort of 2 bar charts, right? And it's about the difference of the speed with which people are experiencing homelessness and the speed with which we actually can get people off the street. And so the point to know is in 2019, right? You have a look and you can see that the rate was 2.5 people experiencing homelessness for every one who got housed, right? That math does not add up. So even if we house thousands of people, there's still more behind them. Similarly, 2022, what you can see is that rate has come down. Now it's 1.7 people for every one that we help get housed. We need to keep pushing on prevention, on permanent housing strategies. Those help people stay in their homes, but we still haven't gotten that number below 1 to 1. So it's part of the context. And just for everybody that's joining late, we're just doing some background information. We're going to talk about the preferred sites, which are not in District 2. We're going to talk briefly about the Bernal sites that are backup sites that are backup for consideration. And then we're going to go to questions and answers. But one more slide before we do that. This is a snapshot. If you think about the ways that a community addresses homelessness, there are prevention solutions, there are crisis response, and then there are things that actually solve and permanently end a person's homelessness. And so this graphic provides a little snapshot so that you could get an understanding of what happens. And you can see that when we help people before they lose their home, over 96% of them stay in those homes, right? That's a good strategy. On the other end, for solutions, we know that permanent housing, and this is true regardless of how sick somebody might be, no matter their health conditions, with proper support, if we build solutions that are appropriate for an individual, over 95% of people actually remain in those homes. So it's a really effective solution. And what we're talking about today, that crisis response, the reality is there are thousands of people that are living, unfortunately, on our streets. And what we know is that many of them, when they get into these solutions, these opportunities, they remain off the street, which is a step towards being able to get permanently housed while we're building that additional supply. So what happened? You heard Mayor Mahan and Councilmember Jimenez say, well, we've got this opportunity, right? Staff, myself, my colleagues, we were directed by the mayor and council. We want you to scale up this interim housing. Go out, find locations, work wherever you can. And then something else happened. In March of this year, the governor made a large announcement, as you can see on this screen. And he said, look, we're taking this sense of urgency. And so you need to act now, but we are going to design, procure, which just means do the contracting, and construct units in all over the state in different communities. And San Jose is getting 200 of those. So we really need a willing property owner, and that urgency really demands action. And so with that as background, let's talk briefly about the preferred sites, the backup sites, and then we'll go to the community and I'll start answering questions. So this first site that you're looking at, it is what we call the Cerrone VTA yard, right? And it's a very large site around the 237 in Zanker that was already approved by our mayor and council last year for us to proceed with interim housing. So we have the city council's approval. We just need to work to keep that process going with VTA and move urgently, like I said, so that we can work with the state's timing. And then the other site, and this one we'll be asking the council to approve on June 6th, is in District 9. It's near the Bass Pro Shop there off Cherry Avenue. And we did a community meeting like this one. There were over 90 people in that session, and they provided their input. There was a fair amount of questions, but generally positive interest in having a localized solution to help people get off the street while they were on their way to the next step. So those are the two sites that are our preferred for the state small homes initiative. And if we can get those sites moving with the same urgency that we have around all of our other sites, we think those are the better options. They're large, they allow for a diversity around the city in terms of where people are. Because again, there are unfortunately unhoused people all over San Jose, and we want them to be able to get that first step in a community that they're comfortable with, right? A lot of times I spend time going into encampments and I'll talk to people who say, like, I went to high school nearby, right? Or my family is nearby. And for whatever reason, like that's not a situation where they can stay with that family or that kind of thing, but they want to be in the community that they know. And this gives us an opportunity to help people do that all over the city and not in just one particular part of town. So I've listed this as alternative sites, whether you use the language alternative or backup. The point is the ones you just saw are the ones we want to use. But there are two sites off of Bernal Road, and the one with the red, you're all probably very, very familiar with this. These are the square footages, but there's one that's north of Bernal and one that is south. And they're large pieces of property. And part of the reasons that these became backup options is because they're owned by the state. So we've got the state on the one hand saying, we want to move, we want to help reduce unsheltered homelessness, and we want to do it now. And then saying, well, what's available to us? And so working with other state-owned property is a good option when we can't get support in the ways that we need in other places. So really quickly, for those that haven't joined, many of you know what emergency interim housing is. I'm just going to take about 2 minutes here, explain what that is for those that are new. This whole deck will be available after this, and then we'll move into question and answer for the next 45 minutes. So just a couple minutes left. So these sites, I have been to all of our sites multiple times, actually. They're quiet and well maintained. They provide a supportive alternative for folks. They align with that community plan to end homelessness that I mentioned. They are part of a whole solution that includes prevention, permanence, and some of these. Isaac Kao, I see you. I'm just making a note so I get you after the people that are in front of you. And then we've got across 6 sites, as the mayor mentioned, several ones going on. Again, around the EIH sites, what are we really talking about? There's regular trash pickup. There's upkeep and service, right? The San Jose Police Department is good about responding when necessary. But again, as pointed out, the data that we presented back on the November 29th council meeting demonstrated that in general, the calls for service actually stay the same or go down in general across these sites. And then they're supportive, right? In the end, we want to be smart about how we use taxpayer dollars. We want to do things that will help members of the community and unhoused members of the community get into safe and supportive environments, help create and improve on healthy neighborhoods. And that's what these do. And this is a short 1-minute presentation. Let's see if I can get it to work. So that you can see, we can't take everybody on a tour right away, but but you should be able to see this one. Student, can you hear that?
Oh, I was so happy. I was so happy because it's a room, there's a bed, showers, laundry.
You know, for me, it's been great because I feel they're real helpful. If you ask them a question, it'll lead you the right way.
This place is amazing because it has given me the opportunity to do all the things as a mother should be doing. I mean, I wish everybody appreciated it as much as I do. We have a home.
It gives me hope, so I can actually focus on my future education and what my career is going to be, besides looking at where my housing is.
So the one thing I'll mention as we switch to your questions and answers is that video it's not staged, those aren't closed sites. Those are fully occupied current sites where people are living. We went to the sites, they keep them clean, they provide people with connections on site, help them get to appointments and things of that sort. So I wanted to share that. A couple nuggets on next steps before we move into Q&A, and I'll pause, I'll turn off the presentation so we can open the full room back up. But we're going to City Council on June 6th. We're seeking that further discussions with VTA. For those that joined late, Councilmember Jimenez mentioned having a meeting with the VTA representative today and a few more planned. So we're excited and eager to charge up those conversations and really figure out what can we do to push forward as quickly as possible with those sites. There will be sort of ongoing community conversations. This is not the end of the process, about the proposed designs, those types of questions. And then even once the project is going, we actually have a process of having neighborhood councils. So some of you have seen this email address before, eihOutreach@sanjoseca.gov. I will say that we do our best. Sometimes it takes a little while to respond. We do make a point of trying to respond to all of the inquiries that come in. I'm going to stop the share now. And I'm looking around. Looks like Issa has proactively taken himself off mute. Go ahead, Issa.
Hey, Omar, I'm going to try to make this quick for other people to have questions. The first one is a statement. Rural Ferrari and Bernal and Monterey are the two EIH sites, and we've had our share of problems with blight encampments, parked cars, RVs in front of Rural Ferrari. That got cleaned up in the last couple of months. We still have a problem with Bernal and Monterey, and you just step out of the EIH and look across the street, you see many tents and encampments. You look to the right and you see RVs parked there and stuff. That's my statement, and I think that's important for the city to clean up, because then it won't be as hard for other neighborhoods to accept EIH. I think EIH is good. I like them, but it needs to be evenly distributed. And regarding your map, and I'm not getting on your case, Omar, because you know I can if I wanted to. I'm just saying that map is very deceiving, because when Councilmember Jimenez and Matt Mahan, when he was council member, and we talked about even distributing, we're talking about EIHs themselves. So when you put up, I'd love to see a map of where the EIHs are and how many are there, because we're going to be getting another 120 in rural Ferrari. And anyway, that's one thing. So that map's a little deceiving. So I'm just, my big question is, are we the dumping ground? Is this, half a mile circle, because we have a map that's out there about 2/3 of a mile of the circle of EIHs, with the two proposed ones, because there's another one in Villa del Oro that's not mentioned in this meeting that people probably don't know about. So I guess it concerns me is, since December, couldn't the city find any other property within San Jose to, use as a backup? I feel a little, put back, especially being the chair of the safe parking site. I'm trying to make it a positive thing for my neighborhood, and I'm getting slammed this week since Thursday because I'm talking positive. We got to help. We got to do our part. And so I'm trying to make a flagship out of the safe parking site. And now, we're dealing with 2 more EIH sites. That's one more last comment. I don't think these EIHs are dangerous. I did hear that because I did talk to what's his name? Aaron Quigley on Friday afternoon. And I don't know if you talked to him, Omar, but he did not tell me this, but I did hear that the VTA site, the people there, they don't want their tools stolen or people going in there and destroying the buses and things like that. So it's almost like NIMBYism attacking the VTA organization. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm going to answer one of those questions. I'm just making notes because in the time since you were speaking, Gail, Stephen, Gail, Stephen, and Nita all raised their hands as well. So I wanted to note I'm doing my best to keep in order so I can keep going. So there's 2 things I guess I would say. First, we can quibble with the map I provided, and for those that didn't see it, it'll be up on the presentation. I think it's useful for folks to be aware that the map, it's not, the purpose is not to deceive folks. It's that there are temporary homes, temporary emergency solutions all over the city, and that the newest, nicest, most well-maintained individual ones with bathrooms are all being, or not all, but many are being looked at in this South San Jose area. Doesn't change that there are also short-term units, and many of them in congregate settings and in other settings that are maybe less desirable in the middle of the city. So it's not intended to deceive people. It's intended to show a bigger picture of the total type of housing. But you did ask one other question that was more of a question around can we not find something else since December? Some alternative somewhere else. And I would say that Cherry Avenue is some alternative somewhere else, right? So it's not that we couldn't find anything, right? Like we're literally looking at other places. But bear in mind that announcement I showed from the governor's office was like end of March, and it's May 22nd. So part of this is like the governor steps forward and says, we want to lean in and help. And so the backup version, not the primary, not the preferred, but the backup version is a state-owned site. So that's really the answer is we didn't have 6 months to go continue looking. So Isa, I want to go on to the next person that's waiting. And that is Brad.
Good evening. Thank you, Omar, for your presentation. And thanks to Councilmember Jimenez for his memo, which I read, and I agree. I think other areas of the city should be looked at. I don't think it should be concentrated in one district, but I believe the speaker before me pretty succinctly stated a lot of things, but I have a few specific questions. And of course, the devil's in the details. I understand that the state's going to provide the funding for the actual units, but who's going to provide the funding for the ongoing maintenance and the management? And that has to do with, I think, certainly blight issues that may come about, the issue of, public safety. We're already understaffed as far as the police department. How will this impact services from, the taxpayers, the ones that normally might call the police department? Will that impact the fire department? Will we see a reduction in those services? And also, where is the county in all this? They're the ones that are involved with the human services. I understand that, ad nauseum, of course, they have that large underutilized parking lot across from the fairgrounds. Why aren't we using that? Why aren't we using a lot of the old fairgrounds property? So I don't hear that mentioned at all. Are some properties untouchable? So maybe you can answer that. I'd like to know if that is, why aren't we seeing any of these things in Almaden Valley? Why not, around the villages in South San Jose? Why not some of those properties down there? So anyway, I know this is real challenging and whatever, but also the last question is, are we in danger of actually encouraging people to come to San Jose because they know San Jose is providing all these temporary housing. And when you say temporary, what is the expectation that, how long will people be expected to stay here in those units before
All right,
having to
Brad,
move
I'm
out?
gonna jump in. You asked probably 6 or 7 questions. I want to make sure your neighbors get a chance to chime in. I will respond to several of them. I think the ongoing funding, and by the way, PK and Nita, I just want to acknowledge that I saw both of your hands as well as Babu. I'm just making notes as we go here. I've got a running list, so I'll get to folks and I'll stay on after if I need to. The state is covering procurement, that's contracting, design, construction of the sites and turning them over to the city. Now, depending on which specific models we may end up using, it may not be that the state picks up 100%. We have found in San Jose that the units with bathrooms, actually the success rates are a little bit higher. And so we are actually going to evaluate that with our mayor and council and as city staff. But so, yeah, the ongoing funding and maintenance are obligations of the city. And so our public works department, our parks, recreation and neighborhood services department. I would say, just for everybody's awareness, with or without interim housing, our ongoing maintenance and things that Brad had mentioned, service calls or response to trash and things of that sort, those are existing obligations of the city. And the people who are moving into our units are in the city. They're just somewhere else and have needs wherever they are. So we are trying to figure out a way to provide people with an alternative that's safer, that gives them trash cans to use, restrooms to use, a place for peace and calm. We have not seen in the sites that we have open a reduction in services. We did a presentation on November 29th, 2022, where we provided some information. We haven't seen that from our fire or police, et cetera. So I don't have a reason to believe that that's what we're going to be having here. The county, Santa Clara County, not only has a role, it does currently play a substantial role on an active, ongoing basis in helping people in the city of San Jose that are in need. I didn't mention, because we're not going to council about it, but there's a whole site in Willow Glen called the Pedro Street that is paid for by the county, and hundreds of people go into that site, and the county funds them to be there and then funds them to go into permanent housing afterwards. Those are San Jose residents, most of them, which is just to say, we always can work more together, right? I don't want to discount the desire for other ways to collaborate and be new and innovative, like we should, but also we should give credit where credit is due, and the county actually does quite a bit. So we'll keep working with them. We'll keep looking for ways to partner together. But I just want to be clear, that's just one example. They also fund a ton of the permanent housing in the city of San Jose. So we'll keep working with them, but they are present. And just like any of us who own property, the county owns the fairgrounds. And so it's not, there isn't a circumstance where we can just say, well, let's do it here. We have to go out, be careful, be thoughtful, work with people, find out who's willing to engage. As you heard from your council member Jimenez, like, he sat down with VTA and said, hey, we want to know what's possible here. We need that help, right? We need that engagement. And your council members, frankly, his leadership in coming to us as staff and saying, hey, we really want to push to find alternatives here, and we want to be thoughtful about this. That's helpful in getting us to go in the right direction as well. Wayne, I just want to acknowledge your hand as well. There's a handful of folks in front of you. I just wanted to get at some of those questions. And then the last thing really quickly I'll say is the state of California has a website called the Homeless Data Integration System. All of the regions in the entire state feed their data into one common database. And one of Brad's last question was, if we add nice services here, are we going to attract people from other communities? And the reality is, when you look at this homeless data integration system year over year, over 90% of the people who get services receive their services from only one region. They're in the same place the whole time. And so the people are not, when you read in the paper that Milpitas stood up this thing or somebody stood up, people are not going, San Jose, let me run to Milpitas. Right, they're staying where they are by and large. So we're not seeing evidence of people flocking because we included an interim housing site. And we have, as I said, thousands of people, unfortunately, who are currently on the street in San Jose. I'm going to go to the next person on the list. Before I go to Michael, I will just, for everybody that's listening, we're in the Q&A section. Karen, I got your hand too. Making a little note. I think I already had your. So we're just in the Q&A portion. There was a presentation. We heard from Mayor Mahan and Councilmember Jimenez. Those will be available online for downloading and watching, including all of this conversation. This session is being recorded. Elvira, I see your hand as well. I'm making a note. Let's go to Michael. Michael Huntington, you still with us? Give Michael a moment. Michael, I'll make a note in case you come back on.
No, I'm on.
Okay.
I'm on. Thank you. And I want to thank you so much for everything that you've done to put this together, the mayor and Sergio. I don't have an axe to grind in this. All my questions are because I really don't understand. Why is so much of this focused around VTA? Why are we not looking for other people or other agencies and companies to partner with outside of VTA? If VTA isn't coming to the table with things that are of interest to them, then apparently they're not interested in working with the city. And if it's a matter of county leverage over VTA, then maybe the county is not interested in pursuing this sort of thing. I think the agreement with the state for property, well, I don't understand what the pass-through is to San Jose. We've talked about how the state will pay for pretty much the logistics of the program up until the point of its turnover to the city. And what are the costs to the city after that? And again, I thank you for everything you've done. I'm going to be an active member in these phone calls in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. So I'll answer the first question about why so much focus on VTA is really we're in the sort of narrow view of the immediate meeting that we're in. The reality is I joined the city of San Jose a year ago, and in that time, I think we've looked at several hundred properties, and in fact, have looked at properties over the last few years. So it isn't that we have been sort of fixated on VTA. It just happens that this site that was approved by our mayor and council is a really good candidate, and we've had some preliminary conversations with VTA that suggest that it has a real opportunity. So that's really what's happened there. We are and have and continue to talk to other entities. Valley Water, who we're engaged with on the Cherry Avenue site that I mentioned, is a partner. Caltrans is a partner that's supporting even actually in your community, which many of you are probably already familiar with. So we are looking at other ones, Michael. I'm going to put you back on mute so that I can go to the next person, but also know you asked about the cost of the city. This, as luck would have it, this is budget season. And so this on the city webpage, there's actually these things called MBAs. They stand for Manager's Budget Addenda. You can read just a ton of information specifically about this topic and all of the costs. It's probably a little more detailed than I could go into right now. But if you reach out to the EIH outreach, I'm happy to send you that link. But thank you very much for that, Michael.
Can I ask one follow-on question, Omar?
Okay, make it quick. We got a long list of folks also waiting patiently.
I'm not sure that I quite understand why we're not engaging with some of the organizations, companies that have become very wealthy because of relationships with the city of San Jose, the county of Santa Clara, the state of California. They have got an awful lot of skin in the game as to where things go and how progress is made in this area.
Yeah, it's a fair point, Michael. I'm going to put you on mute, and I'll just say that we are right. The assumption that we're not engaged with those other entities, not quite right. we are like a big part of my job, and many of my colleagues is constantly looking for other opportunities with private companies, with nonprofits, with government entities, you name it. The crisis is too big and it's too impactful for people on the street and for people who own homes for us not to push in every direction that we can. So I'm going to go to Don. And just a heads up, I've got Joe, Isa, Gail, Stephen, PK, Nita. The list gets pretty long all the way down to Gina is my most recent. So just know that I am paying attention as folks come in. Don?
Yes, good evening. Am I getting through?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I'll keep it short. I understand where the state property is probably more available and more usable. The fact that all of these things seem to be centering in our area of District 2. I'm about a half a mile from the one on Bernal and Monterey. I'm just off Branham right after Safeway. So, and we get people coming up on our patio, taking little showers in the middle of the night with the garden hose or relieving themselves and going through our trash, and bicycles go away instantly.
Don, sorry.
Okay, the thing I'm really looking for is make us a deal. If you're going to do this, add an ordinance or some policy that says don't allow any encampments in this area if you've got all this housing, and don't allow any homeless from another area until there is none in our area. Another, make us a deal and make sure we have the safety of the police enforcement, because the money I'm spending on these, I can't hire new cops with.
Okay.
Right?
Donna,
only
okay.
so much tax money. So that's my feeling.
Understood. Donna, I appreciate that one. I mentioned, so I didn't mention this before, but in that November 29th council, we actually did, to your question, I'm going to go ahead and put you on mute so I can get the next question. We did a great deal, a deep dive into that very issue, like what, because the council, mayor and council asked us, well, what would it look like to do a no encampment zone at various distances and this kind of thing. And we provided a great deal of information then. I think there's a lot to unpack there. I guess I would just say part of what we're trying to do is come up with meaningful, robust, holistic solutions that decrease the number of people who are experiencing homelessness on your street. And one of the ways to decrease street homelessness that this is showing is one of those ways that can help. So I hear the point, and we'll have to keep evaluating, and the mayor and council will be talking about that issue again. But I just want to let you know I heard the question.
Yeah, my only concern was that other homeless move in where these homeless move out. As soon as you house them, and just like the mobile homes, you put a mobile home down there off Cottle, now their space is open here on the street.
Yeah, so it's, yeah, and Donna, I would say, I think we have thousands of people on the street, and we're making changes a few hundred at a time. And so we need to be pushing on those preventive efforts. It's like an all of the above kind of solution that we've got to run to. I'm going to go to Joe Lopez.
I don't know what
Joe,
building all
before
this
you
homeless
go,
shit around my house.
Sorry, Joe, before you go, if there was another Joe,
Or like 8 of them.
Joe, did you have your hand up pretty early?
I sure did. I got taken out somehow. So
no, that's okay. I had your name down anyway, so it works out.
Thank you for recognizing me, and thank you and the other staff members for taking the time up. I know it's been a long day for you folks, and this is your expertise. So I'm happy that I'd have somebody here that can answer some questions. But some of the stuff that I have is in terms of a statement, and that is that you know, I'm as compassionate as most, maybe more than some. However, in this district, what we found is because of the housing, because of the homelessness and the issues that are coming up, such as the supportive housing that you want to institute, it's not free. The cost for supporting housing for 200 units, you're looking at $130,000 per unit per year at a cost of $26 million just for that one location. That's 130 police officers that we could fund. There's no way we can continue to sustain on the larger level these kinds of programs because we're going to run out of money. The other part of this is the district has now become overrun. No matter how many people we've taken off the street, we continue to have people with severe mental health problems slipping through the cracks because they're not being taken in by these controlled environments. You have to conform and deal with certain rules and regulations, of which the people that are really severely disabled and have mental challenges are not able to.
Joe, do you have a question to ask? I'm just mindful, you've got like 12 neighbors who also have questions, so I wanted to see if you had a question.
Well, let me get to the let me get to the bottom of it. The bottom of it is that I don't see in the long run how we're going to be able to continue to take people off the streets given our current policies. So getting back to my original question about the cost, and you were asked about it previously, you're looking at $26 million at a minimum for those 200 units. If people get sick, that's a bigger cost for those particular per house because they're going to Valley Medical Center. So my question is, can you find other areas to do the supportive housing, because we are quite frankly overrun in the district, and that's my last comment.
Okay, thanks, Joe. So just a level set, and we'll provide some more information for folks. We'll put it on the website. I mentioned this budget season, so there's some managers' budget addenda actually coming out that explain the cost. It's the cost of a 100-unit site to operate is not anywhere near 26 million. It's a little closer to about 3 million a year. It's still a lot of money. That's not, I mean, I don't want to sugarcoat it. That's an expensive solution to provide ongoing services, but 26 million and 3 million are very, very different. So just so folks know, we have the budget numbers. You'll see them when they come out. You can scrutinize them. It's all very public, which is the benefit of the city. So and then we continue to look in other areas, as I mentioned, and we'll keep doing that, Joe, to keep looking in other directions. And so I'm going to go to Isa. This is no.
Is it Isaac Omar or?
Oh yeah, yes. I'm sorry, I can't read my own handwriting.
Yeah, one minute, 1 second. Sorry. I just want to mention a couple of things, Omar. I want to reiterate what Isa said. First of all, the map presented in the beginning is misleading. It combines EIH with overnight shelters. We are mixing apples or oranges. So please, moving forward, we request that you create a map that only shows where the EIH are located. And based on what we know so far, most of these EIH, just for the record, are in our district, District 2 and District 10, and they're concentrated in like a couple of miles. So that's something. So that's a request. Different topic, Omar. As you know, our communities are against the cattle VTA. So please do not take the cattle VTA from tens of thousands of District 2 and 10 residents and give it to 100 people. It does not make any sense, and it does not improve the quality of our life. So that's my comment. It's not making our lives better. Finally, I want to appreciate what Sergio's memo for opposing concentrating emergency housing in South San Jose. And that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Isaac. We'll go to Gail.
Thank you, Omar. I just wanted to make a quick statement. Thank you so much. I just wanted to let people know the reason why there are RVs there on Bernal and Monterey and next to the EIH on Bernal is because of the VTA safe parking is 4 months behind schedule. So because of the city and what's been going on, they're 4 months behind schedule. So that's why people are waiting to get into that site. It is pretty clean. I've been out there a few times. It was a mess in the beginning, but it is pretty clean. And all people want to do is be safe, get into that VTA safe parking, and let's get it going. Also, I'm excited about Bass Lake and the Cherry Avenue site. Yes, thank you very much, Omar.
Thank you very much for that. For those that have joined during the course of this, we're scheduled to go till 7. We may go over a little bit, so there's still some hands. As a reminder for everyone, as Councilmember Jimenez said and Mayor Mahan said at the beginning, and we talked about during the presentation, this was a community meeting around what are proposed backup sites. So the Bernal sites that are that some of you received mailers on are backup sites to 2 locations that are staff's preferred locations: the VTA Cerrone site, which is not in District 2, it's in District 4, and the Cherry Avenue site, which is also in District 9. And so those are we're having those conversations. I know Councilmember Jimenez mentioned that he met with VTA today. So we'll continue to pursue that path, but we are going to council on June 6th. So I want to go now to Stephen.
Yeah, I wanted to clarify the term backup. As far as I can hear, it's only a backup for the state funded units, right?
I don't know. We're not considering that site for anything, those Bernal sites, for anything other than if the Cherry Avenue and VTA Cerrone sites don't work out. So it's not
Sure.
like a standing backup for the entire program.
Well, okay, and that's my next question. Mr. Mahan said that there is a larger goal. I think he said to have 1,000 more units, or at least get to 1,000 units. So when I hear those 2 statements, it seems like we might be back here in 3 months after the state. Let's just say you select the Cherry site. I mean, are you telling us that if the Cherry site is selected, you will never come back to South San Jose and ask to build housing off Bernal?
So Stephen, I don't have the authority to do something like that.
But I'm just saying, but let's just clarify that this is only a backup for the state funded units, that these sites could still be in play after those sites, or let's just say after the Cherry site is selected, we could still be back here with you coming, wanting to build more units to meet Mr. Mahan's goal, right?
So, well, I mean, the technical straightforward answer, I want you to listen to the whole answer, but the technical straightforward answer is yes, it's a technical possibility that I could get directed, or we as staff could get directed to look at these particular 2 sites again. The more robust answer is we're looking at these at backups for a very specific thing. And as the mayor and council previously directed, we're being directed to look all over the city. There are districts that still don't have interim housing sites. And so what I would say is, but for the state needing a place that would work quickly with this particular program, we wouldn't be looking at these sites at this time. So it's not a perfect answer. It has what probably feels like a bunch of hedging, but I don't have, like, as city staff, I don't have the authority to just say categorically, like, this is never going to happen or that.
Well, yeah, I just want the community to know that it's only a backup for the state funded units. It's still in play to meet Mr. Mahan's goal. And so my second question is, could you just give us a 30-second thumbnail of what we're going to be talking about next week on Via del Oro?
Sure. So for those that don't know, a philanthropic entity has said, I have 2 acres of land that I will let the city use for exactly 5 years to do, and I will donate cabins, and those really are cabins, and in 5 years, you'll need to move them to some other some other part of the city. But that is the model that philanthropist has come forward with. And so what we're talking about next week is what the council action would be on the 6th about that Via del Oro site. And what it is, I want to be really clear about this. The council action at this point for that Via del Oro site just gives us the ability to then go do the necessary cost benefit analysis and come back to council with that, but so that the council can weigh whether that site will work. We don't
how
know
many
yet.
units?
What's
How many
that?
units? How many units?
It's not certain. It's between 70 and 100. It's fluctuating based on how the site is designed. The site design is not finished yet. There are some issues related to how much parking and how that impacts the number of units and also the overall cost. But again, the big picture, the biggest point is the action that's before the council on the 6th, or will be before the council on the 6th, is not to actually do the units at that site. It's to approve moving forward so that we can go ahead and look at, like, do the evaluation of cost benefit, get our public works department to analyze that site. So that's what we're going to talk about next week.
All right, thank you.
I'm going to go to PK.
Hey Omar, how are you?
Hello.
Yeah, it's been a while since we talked. So Omar, no, thank you for the presentation. Just wanted to let you know that, Matt, I've been in touch with Matt for almost 4 or 5 months, and we do support some of the initiatives he's taking it. So we are supportive of this, the new 204 apartment community you're coming up with. But the challenge is, remember last time I gave you a tour to those impacted locations. There are 4 quadrants, the low on Monterey and Cottle. While that has been cleaned, I don't know if you did get a chance to look at afterwards. Nothing has changed, Omar, to be very fair. I mean, I know you talked about within a mile radius, you'll not have any encampment, but the reality today is if you go on the Monterey EIH, just across the road, you have 7 or 8 encampments, right? If you look at, and I keep talking about the help we need or amenities we need in terms of keeping the neighborhood clean and keeping the blight away. And you won't believe, you should look at the call 311, records in terms of the blight, this region, this neighborhood is dealing with. So my question is there any way you can help? If you look at the weeds, for the first time in the last 7 years, I've seen this grown so big, and for months nobody has looked into that. So my request continues to be that while you get the support of our community, the basic request we all had was to keep the community clean. And my request is, I'm not looking for an answer right now. Please look into the region again, look into the neighborhood. There are tons of areas that needs cleaning. So please look into this and help us address those situations.
Thank you, Pankaj. I'm going to put you on mute. I will say one thing for everyone's, just for clarity's sake. I have not said and would not say that we were instituting a 1 mile encampment zone in any community. That in fact, we went to council to present information about this back in November. So I know that there have been various community members that have raised that issue and a desire for that. And there's a pretty detailed set of analyses around what the challenges are with something like that and why there are other solutions that we're really working towards. But I just want to be clear about that point, because we did meet and I appreciate the tour, and it's good for me and for our colleagues in our departments who are out there in the field to get these opportunities to get out into the community. So I appreciate that. I want to go to Nita. And then ER, I just noticed yours as well. So I've got you at the bottom of our list now. Nita?
Hi, this is Madhukar. Nita is my wife. I'm using her Zoom account to dial in. So thank you, Omar, for the presentation and having this meeting with the community. I had two points, right? One is, this is a point raised by Isaac and Michael and a few others as well. When I look at your map earlier about the distribution of the EIH sites across the districts, not the number, but the number of residents, the number of people who would be housed, not the number of EIH sites itself, but the number of people who would be housed is disproportionately large in districts 10 and 2. So you need to really look at how many people are we sort of placing in these districts, often very close to each other. You mentioned the 1 mile radius. I think if you place too many residents within a short distance of each other, it's sort of not very helpful for them as well as the city services that need to get to them and so on. So you need to look at distributing the housing, the size of the housing units, the number of people who would be housed across other districts in the city. You mentioned there was a particular district that had none. So why are we sort of focusing? I think everything else aside, you need to be sort of fair and in terms of distributing these sites across the city. Also, it's a good thing that we are able to provide money and resources to house the unhoused. I think that's a good thing for the city to do. It's just that the good deed need to be spread out across the city. And second point is, so first point specifically for you is to sort of point out to us a map showing the number of units, the number of people who would be located in the various districts. The second point is we should not use large community sites like the VTA, because the VTA is meant for people to cut down, do public transportation, therefore cutting down on people driving to work and other activities, right? We're trying to cut down traffic and gridlock and not solve that problem, help sort of make that problem worse by using the VTA sites or solving another sort of issue with the homeless sites. So that's the second one. And third one, I want to get an update from you where we are with the Cottle Road VTA site to be used. Is that sort of now in the back burner? Is that not being considered? What is the status there?
Okay.
Because that is another site that is also within District 2 or 10 in the South San Jose neighborhood, within a couple of miles of other large sites here.
Yep, thank you for that. So I'm going to put you on mute. I will answer your questions, or the one question you had. I understand the desire. Oops, sorry about that. I think I messed that up. Need to desire, not Madhukar, but in any case, we are not asking the council to take any action as it relates to the Cottle site. And we are not, the conversations that we're having right now are focused on the VTA Cerrone site. As you probably recall, the council approved both the Cottle and Cerrone sites, but I would say that as the part of the team focused on trying to help deliver emergency interim housing production, we're really spending our time on the Cerrone and the Cherry Ave sites, and then a couple of other things that are not in South San Jose, regardless, and the Via del Oro one, because the philanthropist came to us. So that's where we are on that one. Chaitanya, I see your hand. There's a few in front of you. I just wanted you to know I did see your hand. So, and I did also, I want to say I think it was Madhukar, to your point about a map of the units, like the number of people housed. That I mentioned earlier, the housing inventory count, the sort of federal government, we hope to get some additional data support as we move forward and have more people to be able to do some of these additional things that you're talking about. But I will just say, because some of you, you might have sometimes you get these really sophisticated people sit down with an Excel sheet and really, create something incredible. I will just say the housing inventory count that I shared a link to many of you on an email that I received. It's an downloadable Excel file that has all of the units of various types in the region. You have to figure out what's San Jose and what's not. But I think that information, we're in the process of adding that information. It just might not be something that we are able to add in the next, in the immediate short term. But it's something that's in our minds to work towards. So I want to go to Babu. Did you get back in?
Can I just ask a follow-up question to that?
Yeah, really quickly.
Real quick. So is that a principle to distribute these sites across the city, or is that not a principle? And if so, if that is the principle you're following, then you need to do the homework of getting the data that I just asked for before you implement anything.
Yeah. So here's the thing, right? I'll put it to you this way. The data is there. I already provided it once, so I'm more than happy to share it with you. I'll send you the file. The question of whether it's a council policy has directed us to look at all districts. It has directed us to look at all districts, and we are looking at all districts. So that's the answer to that question. For those that still have questions with their hands up, I'll just let you know I'm able to stay a little bit longer because I know some of you have been waiting patiently. I have about 7 more hands here. And so, and then I just saw another one pop in, two more pop in, John and Ravi, so make it 9 more hands. But I'm gonna go to Babu. Did you get back in? Okay, maybe not.
Yeah, I'm back.
Okay.
Thank you, Omar, for your time. Like, I know you're on fireside, a lot of questions you have to answer now. And I saw like our mayor, like he gave the all explanation, and our council member, Sir Jimenez, also he explained. And this afternoon, I saw his memo about the like third interim house, and he's respectfully opposing. I'm community leader. My name is Babu Prasad here in District 2. I'm District 2 Leadership Council Chairman. We are looking in community, and I was in groundbreaking ceremony on second house in District 2 on Bernal and Monterey Highway. Our Mayor Mahan was giving the speech, and he stated during the speech, I'm going to request each and every council member, they can open their arm and they can accept this kind of house in their district. So like, Nita, he just raised the question, one seems like targeting District 10 and District 2 to building the tiny houses. How come not other like district, like you guys like target? There is also open spaces there. Like when we are walking in district as a community leader, our residents, they're asking why, like already there's two, like one is building, another is already in operation, and third is already proposed. So why only District 2 and 10 is targeting instead of other one? Second question is, instead of putting like tiny houses and building tiny houses for the our homeless brother and sister, I have huge respect for homeless brother and sisters. Instead of that, we can focus on the job creation, like give the on-site hands-on training for job, put like close by the business complex so they can go and work and they can start reset of their life. So that's my question. I'm respectfully opposing third in government in District 2.
Okay.
Thank you, Omar.
Thank you, Babu. So the answers to your question, one, we're actually not just focused on districts 2 and 10. The sites were coming on to the city council on the 6th. The primary sites are districts 9 and 4, and then an RV location in District 3. We're also going to ask to continue exploring a philanthropic site for 5 years in District 10. But that's, and then the issue of these alternate backup sites that are these Bernal sites in District 2. So we are looking at other places. We'll continue to look at other places. When we briefed the other council members about this, we said, hey, we still need to find places in your districts. Help us find other property. And frankly, to everybody in this call, if you have relatives or neighbors or used to live in another part of town and you know of places, and some people have submitted, and we vetted all of the ones that we got in. We do vet the properties that folks submit. And so we'll keep asking and we'll keep working on those other locations. And then I will just say our sites where we can't do instead of housing, do job training, because it's really hard to get to a job when you don't have a roof, right? Like it's just a lot of people do it. Plenty of folks who are currently on the streets also work. But so we can't do either or. What we're going to do is do both. And so we offer connections to jobs and opportunities there. So let me keep going. Baba, I know you, there's a long list. Folks have been waiting really patiently. I want to go to Wayne.
Yeah, hi, can you hear me?
Yes, Wayne.
Yeah, I wanted to talk to you about what makes a good site. Because, we're worried in this neighborhood because the concentration is too much. I heard that the mayor and Gavin Newsom want to put in they want to house 2,000 people in San Jose. And we're like wondering, why are they all doing it here? We were nice enough to do it once, and you guys are adding more and more. I'm worried because there's people that camp next to those sites because they have boyfriends and girlfriends or whatever. There's trash. The next door to that, I put my stuff in a storage place. Now there's rats in there and my stuff is going to get ruined. So we're concerned. I want to know what makes a good site. What is you said we're a backup site. When are you going to make this decision on which, I guess you're going to do it in June 6th. You're going to say Cerrone VTA, we're going to do that, or the other one on by the Bass Pro, you're going to do that. And what about these 2,000 other, people? They're talking about doing some cabins or something around here. I mean,
Wayne, so I appreciate that. I'm going to answer your questions. I just also, there's a good handful of folks, so I'm going to answer those. First, I think the mayor may have just misspoke. I think he said 2,000. I think he was just talking about the 200 that we're getting here. I mean, don't get me wrong. We have more than 2,000 people worth of need in our community, but that's not what we're talking about for this one. So that's that answer. And then in terms of a good site, large sites that are larger than an acre and are generally flat and where we have a willing property owner to work with are sites that start the process of being good. There are other factors when you get into it, but those are the really the big ones. And I would say what we're going to do on June 6th, the council already agreed that we could do the VTA Cerrone site. So if we get some movement from folks like from that conversation and we can move forward with that, we're going to do that. And we don't need to ask council for more permission on that one. We just need to get really working, moving on our VTA engagements. And then on the Cherry Avenue site, that's the one, the Bass Pro Shop, that's one we will be asking about on the 6th. And if the council approves that, that one, unlike some of the other ones we talked about, we would get moving. Get right in and push, and I think we have a good partner that wants to work together, and so we're really excited about that one as well. So that's the answer as far as that goes, and so more to come, and we'll continue to be available. I want to go to Karen, who's been waiting patiently.
Sorry about that. Okay, thanks, Omar, for taking comments and allowing us to ask questions. I think I probably am one of the ones that has a little bit more of a kind of a statement. I mean, you guys know I've been supporting this stuff. I really, really want to continue supporting it. I think it is good for the city overall. However, I am getting really nervous because the way I count, I see a total of 10 sites that are in play within probably a 3 square mile radius. And I don't know when those sites will come online, if they'll come online, but what I've experienced is like what Steven said earlier, I'm concerned that, okay, passing it over right now, once it's on the list, it's going to be on the list because some of them are good sites based on what you just mentioned to Wayne. So it is a concern of mine. I have been asking for the buffer zone, the anti-blight kind of zone around these sites, because I think that would really help. We do have some concerns about the blight around a couple of the sites. Over time, things have started deteriorating. Not the sites themselves, they're pristine, they're beautiful, they're peaceful, but in the surrounding area. And what I keep saying is that I want to be able to stand at the front of one of those sites and look around, and I shouldn't really see any blight. I just really firmly believe that. And my concern is that I'm hearing the conversations are not going well over those budget talks. So now we're, there's 10. I have 10 potential in the future. And I'm not saying they're like heavy in the works, but they are in the works at some level and they're in the immediate area. And so I just would like to understand, what would be the situation, like, okay, so let's say you pass over Bernal and 101. Well, when is it going to come into play again for some other project?
I think so, Karen, I'm going to put you on mute. So we still got a bunch more here. I will say, I think the answer to that question is really the exact same one I gave. I think it was Steven that asked, like, I don't have the authority to say categorically X thing will never happen in the future. That's just, I would be doing, it would not be a fair conversation to have to make that statement. What I can say is there's a finite number of resources and lots of sites that we're trying to look at. There's some districts where we don't have any. Our direction so far from Mayor and Council has been go to every district. And so we're looking in places where there aren't any now. And this is a backup site, again, only because of the nature of it, the fact that it's state owned and this is a state related small homes initiative. So I can't tell you for sure when something will permanently and forever be ruled out of consideration. So all I can say is where our focus is these Cherry Avenue site, the VTA Cerrone site, and going to try to get some find others in these other parts of the district. The north site on North Berryessa Road that we're looking at for RV safe parking. I'm trying to jot down, Jackie, I did get yours earlier, and then I see Julie or Deborah and Julie, Deborah T and Julie, but let me just go, the next on my list is Elvira.
Hi, Omar, how are you?
Hello.
Hey, I was wondering, how long do the residents get to stay at the EIH? Do they get to stay indefinitely until they are moved to, I guess you want to call it permanent supportive housing? Because I was told that some people don't find that permanent housing and are getting booted out. And the second part of my question is, what is the city doing to obtain more permanent supportive housing or permanent housing? Because if we keep building these EIHs, this is the first step. But if there's no part two, then what's going on with that?
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for that, Elvira. So there's sort of two answers on the how long can people stay. It's a pretty wide range. I think the goal is to try to get people transitioned by a year, but it's a goal. And some people move out a couple months in, and some people are there longer than a year. But I mean, one of the things that happened is our housing department worked with the San Francisco Foundation, who funded a study that's going to be provided to council. It's actually online in a few places right now, to figure out what are the things that the people who are successfully using or participants at these sites, what do they need? What changes do we need to make? What's working, what's not? And one of the things is not having that sort of sensation of, oh gosh, I have to hurry up or I'm going to get kicked out. And so I can't tell you is definitively this hour somebody's going to have to be exited, where I think the team is trying to make it more so that people get the support they need until they transition. And to your question, and it's a fair point, if there's no next step, well, what happens? The reality is we're trying to do a few things. We're talking to the county about a model that they use where people who get in the interim housing actually have they get in when they have a voucher for permanence. And so we partner with them and they have an exit, but they just don't have a place to use that money yet. And so it's a temporary place to stay. That's one of the ways that we're trying to look at expanding ways to partner and get people on. The other thing I think is useful for everyone to know is a lot of people who experience homelessness resolve that homelessness without going into supportive housing. Supportive housing is an important, vital, critical aspect of our overall picture. And also lots of people go live with family. They hold on, ER, 1 second. I have you on here, but I just have a couple people in front of you. So I just wanted to let you know, part of that is how do we nurture the other options that people have? Dispute resolution and things of that sort. So we are in the process of trying to also work on permanent solutions. Gina.
Okay, but they're not getting, are they, once they go into the EIH, is there any chance that they would be back on the street again if they didn't find permanent housing before their time is, in air quotes, time is up?
Yeah, so
or do they get to stay there indefinitely? Because I don't think, I've heard that some of them get back out on the street because housing wasn't found for them. And I don't think that's fair.
Yeah, I understand that point. And what I would say is this, like the current models don't have a hard and fast, you have to get out date. But let me do one thing. I'm going to follow up with our housing department and we'll end up doing a little bit of an FAQ, like a frequently asked questions, so that we can be clear about what that exact, if there is, because your question, some people might end up leaving for a variety of reasons. So it's a pretty open-ended question, but the bottom line is we will get that into an FAQ and circle back and make sure it's posted. So you have that. Let's go to Gina.
All right, thank you. Thanks for taking my question. My question, it may resonate off of something a couple other folks said, but I think the most simply put is what fraction of the folks who are staying at the Monterey Bernal EIH or the Rue Ferrari EIH actually were on the street in this area? Because if you could convince us that putting another EIH here would take more people off the street in our local neighborhood, I think people might be for it. But it doesn't seem like that's the case. It seems as if more than anything, I would say there are more homeless that we see here. And in fact, driving from, Santa Teresa down Bernal to 101 and to go to what used to be one of my favorite places, the Coyote Creek Trail, you see so many homeless on the way. It doesn't seem like there's any reduction in the local area.
So Gina, I'm going to answer that pretty quickly. As we've got a number of folks. Herb, I saw your hand as well. It's the short version. You may have seen the PowerPoint deck, which will be added. Even with all of the work that we're doing, the number of people who are experiencing homelessness is growing faster than the number of people who can get housed into housing, not just temporary or interim, but into housing. So part of what you're seeing, part of that sensation of like, wait, why is it increasing? It's increasing because the rate of inflow is still higher than the rate of outflow. So as to the other question, because the city of San Jose has control over the interim housing supply, the people who are going in the interim housing are coming from within the city of San Jose. And so that is part of that answer. There is also currently a neighborhood preference. So the first place that we look is around the places where they're being created. It doesn't get, so your questions are sort of asking related things, but I want to just share that. The other thing that's just useful to know is even though we have that neighborhood preference, like I said to Elvira's question a minute ago, we are also exploring a scenario that doesn't have a neighborhood preference, but the benefit is everybody that goes in has a permanent solution when they go inside. So there's some trade-offs, but even those 84% of the people, 80-something% of the people are from San Jose. So are affiliated with San Jose.
So I understand that they're from San Jose, but I guess my question is, these two sites down here, South San Jose, District 210, what fraction of the people in those sites came from District 2?
You know what? I will have to check with our staff. I don't know if we keep it that granularly. I know they get first option is the people who are nearby, but I couldn't tell you as to the sites in South San Jose right now what that looks like. So I'll make a note of that, and we'll add that as an FAQ if we have the information. We may not collect it in that way. So thanks for that.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to go to ER. And while ER is coming off mute, Sudha, I know we don't have.
Okay. Hello.
Sorry, ER. One quick second. Sudha, we have till 7:30 on this.
Yes, that's correct, Omar.
Just wanted to check. Sorry. So if we run out of time, I'm going to keep going. But if we run out of time, I will make more time to figure out how to make sure everyone else who remains can get their questions answered.
The interpreters are here till 7:45.
Okay, good to know. Chaitanya.
Hello.
Oh, sorry, ER. Oh, my apologies. My apologies. Sorry about that.
Okay. My name is Elizabeth, and I'm new to this conversation, and it's my first web meeting that I've been in. And I've been from the beginning, seeing all the maps and hearing all the proposed projects and like that. And I have to say, it's very obvious that certain districts of the city are not doing their fair share in accepting or housing projects in their areas. I know for a fact that my district in West San Jose is not. And you can also see clearly in all of those illustrations that you gave us that Berryessa, Evergreen, and Almaden Valley are also not doing their fair share in housing, in hosting these projects and the supportive housing. So with 10 city districts, and so far you mentioned something about there were 6 of these supported housing projects that have been up already. Is that correct? 6, you said?
Yeah, there are 6
That,
that are.
and with my simple math, that means that the next 4 of these supported housing projects should be in one of those districts that are not stepping up on their part. I think that size matters too, because if you look at what's there and you add up the number of housing units instead of the number of housing projects, it's obvious that some regions are clearly carrying much more than their fair share in terms of the number of units that are in their district. And so I guess what I'm saying is that because the regions are, that always hold back and resist any obligation to community wellness, not in my backyard kind of thing, continue to avoid being touched, doesn't it mean that the city should double down where there is it doesn't mean that the city should double down where there's the least resistance, meaning that in District 2 and 10, but there should be some kind of accountability by those districts that aren't carrying at least a significant percentage of this. They should be carrying 1/10 of this at the very least, right?
Elizabeth, I hear you.
Thank you.
I've got your comment. I will say, like, to that point, part of the places we're going to the council on June 6th are not in District 2 and District 10, right? Like, so the site there's a large RV site proposed for District 3 on the border of District 4. We're trying to do the site at VTA Cerrone, which is in District 4. We're going to council on the 6th for a site in District 9. We continue in if there are sites in the district where you live in West San Jose, please send them our way. I want to be really clear about one thing for everybody that's here. It is not opposition that drives where I've been, or we as city staff have been directed to go, opposition or lack thereof. It's the need. Our direction is all council districts, and so we are continuing to look at all council districts. But also, I wouldn't be doing we would not be doing appropriate work to say, well, while one conversation is taking longer, we should not do anything in any other area because of that. The piece that we're talking about here is a backup site in District 2 because it was owned by the state, and it's a state-sponsored program. So it created an opportunity, but we are continuing to push. And as you heard from your council member, he is continuing to push to get us in a position to have the Cerrone site and the Cherry Avenue site. And so, Elizabeth, I hear your point. I just want to be really clear. We are continuing to look in other districts across the city. I'm going to go to Herb. You're going to be the last one. We're not there yet, but Chaitanya. Might have lost Chaitanya.
I don't see him in the guest list.
Okay, let's go to, I think it's John.
Hey, Omar, how you doing? Thank you for putting this call together. Earlier in your presentation, you talked about calls for service around these sites, and you mentioned calls for service for the police department went down.
Or stayed the same, right?
However, you failed to mention calls for service for the fire department. And if you were to monitor the call log for, let's say, Station 27, which is located at Bernal and San Ignacio, you will notice that their calls for service for medical calls have increased dramatically. Station 27 is responsible for the Drug and Alcohol Rehab Center on Malik Road, the San Jose Behavioral Center on Silicon Valley Boulevard, the Muriel Wright facility above Santa Teresa Park, as well as Rue Ferrari and Monterey and Bernal. So by adding more EIH sites, you are just saturating Station 27 with medical calls. And you talk to any first responder, they're going to tell you that response time is critical. That response time to a medical call is a matter of life and death. So if Station 27 is on a medical call at one of these facilities and another call comes in for another, let's say another medical call down by Bailey and Santa Teresa, you've increased that response time by easily by 3 miles or by 5 minutes, because Station 35 or Station 18 needs to respond. And
so John, I want to make sure if you have a question, I do have a couple of things to say, but I want to make sure, is there a question that you wanted to pose or just share that?
Yeah, my question is, I want to make sure that response time and public safety is being thought of, and is it being discussed when you meet with your staff?
Okay, so yes, it is being thought of and it is being discussed. Thank you for that question. Maybe another layer of this is I have probably had 4 or 5 meetings with the fire department about the issue of medical calls, other issues that impact fire service, public safety generally. I think the thing that I would mention is that, not specific to what we're talking about in this exact moment, but as it relates to those medical calls, one of the things that same San Francisco Foundation study that I mentioned lifted up, and we're trying to work with the county with, and potentially federally qualified health centers and some health plans, is around providing preventive health, more preventive health support at the interim housing. Because those calls, when you burrow into them a little bit, what you find is that some of them, many of them, could be prevented with supplementing other types of service. And so I since your question is, are we having conversations about discussing, evaluating how to make sure to protect fire response times, I would tell you, I've had that conversation directly with the senior leadership in the fire department, and they take it very seriously, that obligation, and making sure that they have the resources to do it. So yes, we are not only talking about it, but frankly, looking for proactive ways to bring that down a bit. I'm going to go to Ravi.
Hey, thanks, Omar, for the opportunity. I have a bunch of questions. I'll probably list them out and maybe you can answer them later or add an FAQ. One is, I do understand that, hey, we have a state-owned land here, but does the city also look at providing? So I think many people have asked this before, like, if we house so many people close together, are we able to provide them the next immediate step of providing services, providing them, helping with jobs? People who come from North San Jose might not be accustomed to this area. So that's one. Second is, hey, while we are looking at multiple solutions and we are not seeing volunteers from other districts, if it's as simple as passing a policy that, hey, whichever district houses this EIH will get the preferential treatment, that is, all the homeless people in that district will be home first. If there are any additional, then only we'll look at the other districts. That would encourage every district to, like, hey, come build a site in my place so that we can house the homeless. And that's a better way to get more volunteering rather than, hey, I asked all 10, I couldn't find. District 2 and District 10, you have to bear majority of the projects because, hey, we own a state land here. Like, we have, so these solutions will come from policy, right? It will not, it will come from.
Ravi, I want to make sure I hear you. Let me know if you have maybe one more question. I'll answer those 3. I want to go to the last 4 folks.
Yes. The third is, what are the steps we are taking for the step 1, which is basically stopping people from going homeless? Because the biggest problem today is the crime rates have gone up. In my community, there have been vehicle thefts. Every other day, there are car break-in. These are the reasons why people become homeless. So shouldn't city be investing more in stopping that growth? I know you have talked about, hey, no matter how much we house, the homeless population keeps increasing. The reason it keeps increasing is we are not providing them services which every homeowner is supposed, even in the EIH sites, if people are not safe and if there is theft happening, how do you think they will be ever able to stand up back on their feet again? That's the basic.
Ravi, I'm gonna answer your questions. I'm gonna go put you on mute, and I'm gonna answer your questions. I'm gonna go to Jackie. But so the first question about providing jobs or access to jobs, the simple answer is yes. Like, we currently do that. We'll continue to do that and look for ways to do more of that. And so that there's actually some videos out there about our SJ Bridge program. That's not just that. There are others. I've been in sites where they actually have job boards for people who can get connected to work. The question about encouraging other districts by offering a neighborhood preference, we actually currently have that policy. I mentioned that a little bit earlier, and it actually doesn't always encourage as much additional. It doesn't have quite the push that you might think, but we do offer that. The challenge, to your other point, I did not say and did not intend to say that we can never decrease homelessness. I don't believe that. I actually have talked to people in communities that have not only seen decreases, but have gotten to functional zero on chronic homelessness. So I know that it's possible. But to your last point about prevention, we need to do, over 2,500 people were kept in their home thanks to prevention efforts in Santa Clara County. So we know that it works. So I hear you 100% that we need to do prevention, and we should do more of it. Like, we should prevent more people from becoming homeless. Absolutely, 100%. So totally agree with you there. Ravi, I'm gonna put you on mute. There's 4 people who've been waiting, and you can just ask 3 questions. So Ravi, I'm sorry, I gotta make sure. Jackie Hefner.
Hi, thank you, Omar. I have one question. You guys keep showing the map with the circles of where different facilities are. Is there a way that we can get a map that would show in those districts which ones are interim housing and which are permanent supportive housing? Because I'd like to know if our area is disproportionately ending up with the interim housing versus the permanent housing. So can you guys put together something like that with addresses instead of just circles?
Yeah, so there's a couple of hurdles around the address question. Like Jackie, the most direct question is, the map that I showed doesn't have any permanent. It's all emergency and interim. So we took the permanent off the map intentionally so that we were not mixing like permanent solutions and temporary solutions for exactly that reason. The sole purpose of that map was just to help people visualize where temporary stays in the city of San Jose are. So it doesn't include those. I will tell you the source document, the housing inventory account, has permanent as well. But we excluded it because we didn't want to be comparing permanent to temporary.
Okay, I have one more question about 10 Kirk Street. I don't know if you're familiar with that. Do you know where that is?
I can't say. I'm pretty bad with directions, and because I only have bike transport, I'm not super great, but go ahead.
It is in Alum Rock, and I'm a little confused. I'm still trying to call the supervisor to find out, but it is a VA interim housing facility, and it's being run by the VA, but people who live there were being told that the county is taking it over. And Omar, I know you're busy, but I would really, for personal reasons, like to get some information on what's going on with that facility. It's 10 Kirk, it's a VA facility, and evidently the county is coming in, but I can't get any answers.
Okay, so if you can, so the email that we put up earlier was EIH outreach at sanjoseca.gov. And send an email. I'll figure out who to connect you to. I don't know offhand. I'll have to do some checking. Deborah T.
Hello, my
Hi,
name is
Deborah.
Deborah. My name is Deborah, and I used to live in this district, but I became homeless. I used to live on Ulrich, and then I also lived out on Wildflower Drive in Palmilla. And I went through a divorce and had a car accident, and I have a disability and a disabled child as well. I am living in permanent supportive housing in downtown San Jose because there weren't any resources in my neighborhood when that took place. So I just want to thank everyone for participating in this process, and also let people know that I am living in permanent supportive housing. I've been here for 3 years. There has been kind of a progression of events that eventually gets resolved, but there will be things that happen and an increase in kind of a shift, as you move people in, then you get the people hanging out outside that want to come in or want to be seen so that they can be housed too. And then people trying to sneak into the building. There's all kinds of things that happen, but eventually those things get resolved. We had a really good police response. And then the mobile crisis unit is something that people need to be aware of for calling. I think one of the important things is that that people's fears be abated, I guess, with information about how to deal with people. If you see people with mental illness walking down the street, what do you do? If somebody's having a crisis because they're on drugs, what do you do? Who do you call? These are the things that we can empower ourselves as the community to help our neighbors. And it totally can be done. I have been through what I think is the worst case scenario in that I was being stalked by someone with schizophrenia, and the police and the court system helped me through that. It's really important that we have staff that are well trained, and also that they are kind and dignified and respectful in the way that they treat people, because they're human beings and they're going to treat you exactly the way that you're treating them. And my question is,
sorry, go ahead. I was going to ask
yes.
if you had a question.
So my question is, I'm hearing things about people being forced into these concentrated communities, and I'd like to know for sure, is that really going to happen, where people are going to be forced to live in these places? And what kind of rights are they going to have when they're there? Are they under a lease? Are they under a contract? And how will their rights be protected as well? How will they be kept safe?
Okay, so I think, Deborah, again, if you could reach out, like there's a lot to unpack on the second question. The sites actually have, the service providers are sort of required to provide folks with a sense of what rights do they have while they're there, how do they deal with issues that come up. There's a whole, that's its own separate sort of additional conversation. I will say, to your first question, I literally have never, I work for the city of San Jose. I work closely with the housing department who oversees the implementation of these programs. I've literally never heard one person from the housing department ever say anything like, people are going to be forced to go into an emergency interim housing unit like that. It's, I don't know. It's not a thing that I can imagine being allowed. I'll say that. I'm
I
not
believe that was in a memo from Matt
I'm-
Mahan.
I'm not a practicing, so I'm not a practicing attorney, so I don't want to like comment on whether that's a type of thing would even be allowed, but I will just say, like, the department of the city of San Jose that sets up these programs is the housing department. I work very closely with that department and its staff, and I have never had anyone suggest to me that that they were planning to force anybody to go into an emergency interim housing. So I want to, Deborah, hold on a second. I answered your question.
No, I'm not arguing with you. I'm not arguing with you about it. I'm just saying that it came from a memo where he said he was wanting to do something
Deborah,
like Haven for Hope.
I'm sorry to cut you off, Deborah, but I
And
also, like,
Haven
people have
for
been
Hope
waiting
in
for
San
a very
Antonio
long.
uses
Okay, Deborah, sorry to have muted you. I said that there are people that have been waiting. We're already 40 minutes past the time that we were going to stop. So I just would ask you to let your neighbors, the 3 additional neighbors who have comments, speak. And the first one is Jewel.
So Haven for Hope in San Antonio is a punishment-based system that Matt Mahan was comparing.
Okay. Jewel, are you still there?
I'm here. So I guess a lot of this conversation kind of feels like deja vu, Omar, because we had very similar conversations last summer and fall about the Great Oaks EIH site in this area, which eventually got reproposed after a lot of conversations and stress from residents to the Cottle site. But I'm just wondering, like, how many times are we going to have to go through this? Because it's a lot for the residents. I feel like I want the opposite of the lottery, being in this area and now realizing that all of the homeless sites are now proposed for this area versus being equally distributed. And I know you said you can't guarantee this happening again and again, but how does the council or you or whoever has the ability pass something that does start to guarantee residents like a maximum number of beds per area or something like that, even if we can't do like a radius? Or how do we say this district is responsible for coming up with solutions because they haven't already, because it doesn't seem like there's enough pressure being put on other districts.
Yeah, so Julie, what I would say to answer that question is you're asking for what I would describe as a political question of somebody who's our job as staff is to implement the sort of vision of the mayor and council, like faithfully based on our areas of expertise. So what, like you said, while I can't say, you know, this is a guaranteed or not guaranteed, I think that is a conversation to have to present to your you know, electeds when we go on June 6th and ask that kind of question. What I can say to you is what I've said to several of your neighbors and colleagues who are on in this meeting. We are looking at a variety of sites. We're coming to ask about sites that are in neither District 2 or District 10 on June 6th, and we'll keep looking for sites in District 1 and District 8 where there aren't any. So we will keep pushing to do that. And just as a reminder, in case you didn't see the slide deck at the beginning, with about 5,000 folks, just the unsheltered individuals who are experiencing homelessness in San Jose, we have a very big gap. And so we need to prevent more folks all over the city. We need to permanently house more folks all over the city. And we have to do something about what's happening on our street right now. And that's what we're trying to do. So I would say, by all means, please, that would be my suggestion, is what you're looking for is a change that says the council is directing X. I think that's a conversation to be had with your elected leaders. That would be my best answer, Julie.
And did you say that's June 6th would be that meeting?
That's right.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we've got Herb. And actually, I'm going to go to Herb and then make Mark the last one, actually. Mark, it was supposed to be Herb, but you got in under the radar. So
that's
Herb,
why I'm going to have you, I'm going to elect you into any position you want in this city, okay? Let us know what you're going to go for.
Are you talking to Mark?
No, I'm talking to you. You do a good job. I just want to thank you. I know it's not easy, you know. A couple items, with the new housing director, I'm hoping we can get a 24/7 hotline. That would help us with people on the street. So once we get that housing director, I'm hoping we can convince the city to do that. And that might help with some of the calls we have. The other point I wanted to make was the governor and the state can control the state property. You guys won't have any control somewhat of that. Calpine was a good instance of that. We ended up with a power plant and the community didn't want it. So just so the people know that. Also, I had a question about the VTA. With the contract that you guys have with the VTA, it's for 2 or 3, how many years is it? And then after that, since the facility's been built, can VTA build on it and put housing for themselves or make money off of it? So that's kind of the question I have. How long are the contracts? And then after that, will they be able to build and make some money off of those areas that they put sites on? Thank you, sir.
So those are good. Thank you for that. I have the position I want in the city. I work with really committed, passionate people. I appreciate that very much. But and I get to do the work that we're doing right now, even 12 hours in. Like, this is a blessing, to be honest with you. Like, that this is my job. So I appreciate the thank you, but just know I'm doing what I feel called to do. I would say this, and I think it's a really good point that for everybody, I think, to be aware. You mentioned an after hours hotline, and an after hours hotline is really functionally only so good as after hours resources. And so as you're thinking about that, and as the community is sort of dealing, like, well, what happens? My previous job, I was down in San Diego County, and it was actually a sheriff's department who said, we need not only after hours phone calls, we need support for after hours places where people are allowed to go at like 2 in the morning or 4 in the morning or whatever. Because what they said to me was, look, our only options are the hospital and jail. And so what are we supposed to do? So just bear in mind, Herb, when you're thinking about that as we go forward, we have to do the whole kit and caboodle.
Right. It's a big problem. My daughter's an officer in the city. They continue to take a lot of their time up, and there's a lot of issues there because of fatalities and issues. So it's kind of sad. And so I'd hope that we could come up with a solution. The other thing I wanted to say to Karen, Greg, and Issa, thank you for stepping up the community to get involved with these so we know what's going on. everybody on this call should be, listening to what's going on at the VTA sites, and we do updates with the original sites here. So, and I think you're involved in that also. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Herb. Before I go to Mark, I will say we try to get 10-year leases when possible. And then what happens after that is sort of, the leases tend to include a clause that say something like, it will return it to its original state when we're done. So they would theoretically be able to do whatever they want because the property's back to normal. All right, Mark, bring us home. Oh, you're muted. You're still muted. Oh, Mark, what a bummer. It looks like super engaging. I'm certain this is great content. Oh, there we go.
You got me? All right,
Yes.
sorry about that. I appreciate you taking my question. I'll try and make it short. It's a tough question. But the concern is that I am a supporter of interim housing and taking care of the residents, the long-term residents here in the county, as far as this program. My question is, to what extent are our homegrown people in need being displaced by southern border new entrants in the immigration system?
So it's a good question. And the honest answer is I don't know. I think it's something with some of the changes in the rules and things that we might need to explore a little bit more. I'm going to circle back with our housing department staff. I don't know. There are certain questions when certain types of housing, you have to, you may have to ask certain different questions depending on what it is based on the funding source. I don't know, as we're sitting here right now, what the truth is, like what we have to ask and don't ask, and what we choose to ask for folks that are going into our interim housing. So I'll check on that, and we'll make sure to post something about that with our FAQs. So it's a good question, Mark. I apologize, I just don't have the answer handy.
Thank you and good night.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody, for coming in. This recording will go up on the website in the next some days. There's a lot of work going on, and the presentation slides, you can share it with other colleagues. The website address again, or email, is eihoutreach@sanjoseca.gov. In case anybody has follow-ups that they didn't quite get answered, we'll do our best. Your patience is appreciated. And thank you all very much for coming out and voicing your opinions about this. Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night. Thank you, Omar, for your patience. You did it.